Hi everyone, Amber here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 5 of my Bambi's Birthday Bash series here on YouTube. This is a 7-day series leading up to my birthday with a new paper crafting video coming out every day until then. So if you missed the first 4 videos in this series, I will leave the links to each of those down below in the description box so that you can check those out. In today's video, we will be making this binder style mini album. It has pages that also double as pockets so that you can add more photos and memories. So let's go ahead and dive into making this. To start, we will need 3 pieces of chipboard. My chipboard pieces measure 4.5 by 6 inches for the covers and 4.5 by 2 inches for the spine. So I showed those cover pieces standing upright. We are actually going to flip them over sideways when we wrap our chipboard, and to do that I need an extra long piece of paper. So I have 2 pieces of paper that measure 6 by 12 inches, and I'm just using some super sticky double-sided tape to adhere those together end to end. So you can see here I just added a couple of pieces of tape, and then I'm just going to add that one piece on top of the other and make sure that it's nice and glued together. Then, since we have a seam in our paper now, I'm going to add my chipboard spine right to the seam. This will help to kind of hide it on the outside of our album. And then I am going to add my covers to either side of the spine. So I'm using just my 1/4 inch double-sided tape to adhere all of my pieces down. And I'm also using 2 pieces of scrap chipboard as a guide for how much space should be between all of my chipboard pieces. This is a nice trick if you want to get everything nice and even. So now I'm just going to add my last cover piece down. You can totally use whatever adhesive you want for this process. I just like double-sided tape because it's super quick and easy. So once I get this piece in place, I like to make sure that everything is nice and glued down by just running it over with my scoring tool. And then I'm going to take my paper trimmer and trim both short sides so that I have about 1/2 inch or so of paper left over. And then I am going to use my scoring tool again to this time score along all the edges of my chipboard pieces. This just helps to fold up all of these panels later on when we are going to adhere them down. Now I'm going to cut all of the corners off of my paper, and I'm not cutting right up against the corner of my chipboard. I'm leaving about an 1/8 inch or so of paper left over. And now I'm going to take my 1/4 inch double-sided tape and just add that to all 4 of my panels. So I am adding 2 strips of tape to each panel here. Again, you can use whatever adhesive you prefer. I wish I had learned about double-sided tape sooner. I think it's super nifty and I use it for all of my projects now. So once I have this down, I like to start wrapping the long sides first. So I'm going to remove the backing of my tape on one of my long sides, and then I am going to start in the center and work my way outward. So here I'm actually pre-folding all of my pieces down. I like to do that just so all of my panels are kind of molded into the shape that they are going to be when we fold them over. So you can see here that I started with one of the long sides, and I started in the center by first adhering that down, and then I just move downward and outward along the rest of the panel. And now for the short sides, I am going to tuck in the corners of my paper. So I'm just putting my scoring tool, you can use a pencil or your fingers, and I'm just tucking in up against the corner of that chipboard, just tucking the paper in a bit. This will give us a less sharp and neater corner. So you can see here how I'm doing that. I'm just pushing down on the paper right up against the chipboard, and then I'm folding that last panel over and adhering it down. So now I am just showing you here that we are ready to add the lining of the album. So when I made this album, it was on a whim, and I didn't realize that I was going to have to use 2 strips of paper to line the inside of it. And I really wanted to use this super cute paper from the Carousel collection. So I ended up cutting these strips into 2 pieces that measure 7 by 4¼ inch. And then I am adding my 1/4 inch double-sided tape to the entire inside of my album, leaving about 1/4 inch or so on all of the edges. And then I am just going to lay these 2 pieces down so that they are overlapping on my spine, and that will kind of hide the fact that I had to use 2 sheets for this. So I'm just removing the backing of all of my tape, and then I am going to lay down the leftmost side panel first, and I'm going to smooth that out. You can see that I used a lot of adhesive for the lining of my album. This helps to avoid any air bubbles when you fold up on your cover lines. So now that I have that first piece down, I'm going to add the second, but first I'm going to add a strip of my tape right onto the right edge of that paper, and then I will just layer this second sheet right on top of it and try to keep it as even and lined up with that first sheet as possible. And then again, just make sure that it's nice and stuck down and really work it into the adhesive to avoid those air bubbles. Then I am going to just fold up my covers and crease those fold lines. And we are ready to move on to adding the holes. So originally I wanted to use these smaller binder rings, but after I punched my holes, I realized that they were too small, and you will see that later in the video. So those measure about 1¼ inch, and the binder rings I ended up using were 1½ inch. So you basically want to punch your holes about 1¼ inch apart and then use 1½ inch binder rings. So all of the measurements and details for this entire project can be found on my blog, which will be linked down below in the description box, so you can find all of those details there. I am using my We Are Memory Keepers Crocodile punch to punch my holes, since this is thick chipboard. And then I am using some eyelets to reinforce those holes and also to just dress it up a bit. So I was going to go with those green ones, but then I think that these floral shaped teal ones look really, really nice against the yellow paper that I chose. So I am just using my crocodile to set those into place. And then you will see that I tried to add these smaller rings into the album, and I noticed that they were too small. So just keep in mind you will need 1½ inch binder rings for this. So you can see that happening here. This happens sometimes when you are just making things on a whim, like I was with this album. So you just have to kind of work with the flow and work with what you got. So that's what I'm doing here. And these rings fit perfectly. And now it's time to add some charms. Usually I wait till the end of an album to do this, but I just wanted to do it now. So I have a whole stash of little baubles and charms and beads and stuff to add. So I'm going through my stash. These are all little bits from my friend Haley. She was kind enough to send me some. And then I'm also going to pull some tassels from my stash. I have some that I made myself, as well as some that I got from Amazon. I actually just bought a whole pack of, I think it was over 100 because I kept running out, and it came in all different colors. So now I have them for a while. So I'm just trying to mix and match, and I'm using that paper on the inside lining of my album as a guide for what colors to use. And I went with that teal, green, blue colored tassel to match that XO. And then I'm grabbing a pink And I am using some jump rings to hold all of these together and to also attach them to my album itself. And of course, we will be attaching them to that top ring. And since there are no pages in, this kind of pulls the ring down at the moment. But once we add all of the pages, it's going to work perfectly. I'm going to trim that tassel a bit because it was too long, and now it's time to work on the pages. So my pages are strips of paper that measure 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and I folded them in half, so you can see here. And then I'm using a glue stick as a temporary adhesive to adhere the bottom and the side edge together. So this is going to create a pocket. So I'm using a temporary adhesive because I'm going to stitch on the 2 sides and the bottom just to add some texture. And I'm going to do that for all of my pieces. So you can see here that I think in the process part of this video, I had 7 pages, but I actually ended up only using 5. You can definitely fit more than 7 if you want to. I just, for what I wanted to use this album for, only ended up using 5. So I am just adding glue to all of these, and then I'm going to stitch them off camera and quickly just briefly show you what that looks like. And then I am going to punch the holes in all of them and add them to the album. So you can see here that I use some gold thread in my sewing machine to stitch on the 2 sides and the bottom. And now I am going to use the punched holes in my album base as a guide for where the holes on all of my pages should go. So I am doing the holes about 1/2 inch or so away from the edge of the page. And then I am just going to punch those out. And then I am going to use this first page as a template for where I need to punch all of the holes on the other pages. I could have punched all of these at once with the crocodile because it can punch a bunch of papers at once, but I just wanted to make sure that everything was going to be super lined up and even for this album. So I just used a pencil to mark where all of the other holes will be on the other 6 pages. And then I'm just going to punch those out. And then all I have to do is add them to the album itself, and then it's ready to be decorated and embellished. And of course, these pages are pockets. They open on the top, so you can add photos and memories to those, as well as to the backs and fronts of each page. And that is this project done. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did and you do decide to make this project, I would love to see, so please feel free to tag me on Instagram at bambismail and use the hashtag bambisbirthdaybash so that I can see your project. I will see you guys in tomorrow's video for another fun tutorial. Until then, take care and happy crafting. Bye!